had a new
Hey.
right here, kind of off camera. Like I forgot it still says 9 p.m. on Thursdays. I'm like, text. Nope, not 9 p.m. on Thursdays anymore.
I did like so I know that we're starting a little bit late today, and I'll just say this, like, um this is a new time for Jeff and I. This is my Friday lunch break, which I'm excited to be using for our calls here. I also think that as we spend more time getting in on these Friday afternoons, I think this is going to be a really cool time to be able to connect with our community.
Yeah,
So
totally agree.
yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's cool. I like being able to do this on Fridays. I feel like I've got a little bit more mental energy and motivation this time of the day on a
Yep.
Friday. Less meetings, so I can really focus. So yeah, I'm stoked. And everyone, thanks for being patient while we started a little bit late today. It's okay. It happens. We're all good. No worries. I've got my afternoon coffee on my new Ember mug. These things are amazing.
Oh, that's interesting. I also have that
wow.
coffee.
Dude, I found myself, it's also interesting. Ever since we got these for Christmas, I'm finding myself actually drinking less coffee because I've realized all I really want throughout the day is like something warm to drink. So now that it's just warm, like I don't keep heat. Well, because of course, every time you heat up in the microwave, it tastes like crap afterwards. But now it doesn't. I don't have that, and it's just I have something warm to drink all day. I'm like, this is whether it's this or tea. I'm like, oh, I actually drink a lot less coffee now because of it.
Well, I will tell you, I am a little bit of I think I might be a coffee heathen, because I also love a hot cup of coffee, especially like, first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
What's the Will Ferrell line from Old School? Once it touches your lips. So like 100%, like I love a good cup of coffee, but I will say that a big part of a big part of my day is I actually enjoy, like, as my coffee cools and then it becomes just kind of like a cold cup of coffee. It's just like almost iced coffee. And so, but that said, man, I will say I'm always like riding close to a heart attack because I drink way too much coffee.
Yeah,
like
I've been trying to scale back. My wife and I went to half calf a while ago because she needed to reduce her caffeine intake anyway. And I'm like, you know what? With having anxiety and being on medication for that, probably not a good idea to like be upping my caffeine intake. So like half calf is good. And then I found myself, now that I'm drinking, I just want something warm to drink. I've just been buying some cool teas, like good flavored, not sweet, but like things that have like no caffeine, but that just taste really good. And so now I'm just finding myself drinking that throughout the day. I'm like, oh, see, I can still have something that I enjoy that doesn't have to just be black coffee that's caffeinated, which is kind of nice. So, I mean, I'm still high energy all the time anyway, but I don't need more caffeine to aid that because it ends up making it worse. I don't need that.
Oh no, man, I feel you on that. Like I will say that when people are like, how do you keep up with 5 kids? And it's like, there's a cup of coffee a day for my kids.
Per kid?
Each one.
One cup for each kid?
Has,
all at once.
Exactly.
It's a very strong Americano.
But yeah, I will say I purposefully don't have a cup of coffee. Someone was saying, I should get a Keurig for my office. And I was like, I'd die. One of the things that prevents... Yeah, just drink coffee all day. One of the things that prevents that is me actually getting up and going to get myself a cup of coffee. It's like, I'll get it later. I'll get it later.
I just realized. So for everyone watching, we're going to get to Star Wars stuff here in just a minute, but I probably should have relabeled the show today to instead of saying the Kessel Chat to say the Kettle Chat, because we are talking a bit about like steeping things. See what I did there? I
100%. Man. I saw it and I went with it. I was the one that opened up and said, "This is Jeff and I's lunch break during the day. Like, we've been working all morning to get to this moment. This is our lunch break. We all have to go back to work in about 45 minutes."
Yep.
But yeah, this is good stuff,
dude. We've got.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I've got a connection to this, which is someone reminded me that in the old Legends Star Wars books, and Jeff, I want to see if you can remember this, they drink a lot of hot chocolate. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. In the current canon, they drink a lot of calf, but I've not heard about hot chocolate. Really?
Yeah, they drink a lot of hot chocolate. And I remember even when I was a kid thinking with like the new Jedi Academy and all that stuff, like, why are they drinking hot chocolate? It's the Kevin J. Anderson books, and I'm always like, you know, isn't there a Star Warsian thing that they should be drinking and not? Someone in the comment, if someone who's watching, you can keep me honest on this. Do you remember them drinking hot chocolate in these books? Because I remember they always drank hot chocolate, and I remember thinking, why? Like, there's lightsabers, there's star destroyers, there's all these
and then
things,
there's
and hot chocolate.
I
don't
know,
buy
dude.
it.
I do know that
Yeah.
like in a lot of the modern books and things, they talk about drinking hot calf a lot.
Yep.
And talking about the quality of the calf in the Empire compared to the quality of calf in other places. That has been talked about quite a bit, which is interesting. Oh,
yeah.
Yep. Mike just said that is a Timothy Zahn invention.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just remember this thing being hot chocolate, and I don't know why it just stood out so poorly, because it would be like if Han Solo was like, "Hey Lando, do you want to play some poker?" And I'd be like, I don't think. Yeah, exactly. Like poker is not a Star Wars thing. Like Sabacc,
I can see everybody like in a movie sitting back when Han's asking that question. Everyone looking at him like, dude, no, we don't do fourth wall breaks here. What are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. What are you talking about, man?
Wrong. That's
we
the
have
MCU.
We have our version of that game.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. We're not Deadpool. Calm yourself.
or like if Rose is like says to Finn, oh, you know, I've this place, Canto Bight, is like intergalactic Las Vegas. Like, that just wouldn't, or intergalactic Monte Carlo, you know?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It wouldn't work.
Hot chocolate.
So, it would feel very strange.
Yeah.
It would feel really, really strange. Awesome. Well, why don't we get into it? Because we had a lot to talk about. From the Mandalorian Season 3, the latest trailer that just came out, Bad Batch has been rolling along, and it's awesome. There's so much. And, you know, we only have like 40 minutes left in the show, so let's just get into it.
Let's dive in.
Go on.
I realized, Jeff, there was a delay because normally I say punch it. So yeah, you know,
I was opening, you know what? I made the mistake. I gotta stop that. Let me close this. I made the mistake of opening up a browser at the same time, and not a good idea to do. My Mac Mini can only handle so much, and Ecamm does take quite a bit of resources. So I think this may be time I need to convince the wife to let me buy a Mac Studio. I'm just saying.
Hey, I'm gonna support that purchase, and I will happily contribute.
Awesome.
But yeah, man, there's like so much for us to talk about. I saw that trailer, the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer. Mandalore, again, like, I'm already on record for the Andor series is now my favorite Star Wars property. Come at me.
Mm-hmm.
I can fight. I can fight. Welcome to my TED Talk. But the thing that I'm interested in too is just there's just so much good kind of like Star Wars buzz in the air. And of course, I had a huge thing that just happened to me today that Jeff just found out about.
It is beautiful.
I am this is just a side item, but I'm switching to a new role in at work, and as a pep talk to get a member of the team that I work with got a cameo with me and Snap Wexley, Greg Grunberg, and I still can't believe that. Snap Wexley contact a video of Snap Wexley telling me best of luck in the new role, talking to me about the Kessel chat, talking about how you need a good co-pilot in life. I am just over the moon right now. And yeah, like, what's crazy, and I don't know if I've told you this, Jeff. Jeff knows that I have a small collection of like Star Wars Lego ships. I have, like, you know, the Mandalorians, Razor Crest. I have all these little ships, but one of them that I have, because it's my favorite ship, is the A-Wing, and it is Snap Wexley's A-Wing from episode 9. And so yeah, it's I'm like I'm still like I don't have the words for it. Ken Alger, oh my gosh, you've just yeah, my heart is full. I seriously, it's like blowing my mind. Oh, and Jeff, you might be on mute.
To unmute myself there. It's interesting. He sent me a message saying we were messaging back and forth about something else, and Ken actually said, "Hey, ask Ryan about Snap Wexley." I'm like, "Oh yeah, totally will. I will do." And then you and I were talking about the show, and I was like, "Okay, I'll ask him in a few minutes." And then you sent me that video. I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like the two things connected. That was
I
beautiful, dude.
I mean, one, okay, so I just a couple of quick notes too. One, I'm a one. I say Snap all the time, so this is great that Snap Wexley contacted me. Two, like again, it was just such a thoughtful thing to get a pep talk from Snap Wexley to have him talk about the Kessel Chat. I'm going to take that as an endorsement of the Kessel Chat. Sorry.
Was it
And
meant to be something else? Because that's how I took it.
100%. And so I'm gonna share a little bit of that on social media, so we'll make sure that that's connected into the
Yes.
social to the Kessel Chat social. But I also want to just say, like, it's great when you have people in your life that you got to have a group of friends that do stuff like this. People that can reach out, can support you with the things that you love and care about. I still like, and Ken knows because Ken also has like a side connection into the movie industry, so he has his contacts. Ken happens to know the actress that played the childlike empress from Neverending Story.
Oh my gosh, yes, he's mentioned that before. Yep.
And I already told him you can't introduce me to this person because I will not. It's like if I met Atreyu or Bastion or anybody else from Neverending Story.
I had such a crush on that character, that little girl, when I was a kid. Like the first time I saw it, like such a crush on her.
No, I mean, I feel like I would be like, "Do you know who you are?" And I even told Ken that. I said, "Ken, I'd embarrass myself. I'd be like, "Do you know who you are? You're Moonchild." The it is that movie. I will say I wanted to watch it with my kids, and then I just rewatched it over last weekend, Ken, Jeff, and that is you can't watch that with anybody.
No.
It is a totally wildly depressing and yet suddenly uplifting movie right at
Oh
the
my
end.
gosh, it is so
Um,
yeah, it's hard. It was scary as a kid. It
it
scared me as a
is.
kid.
Yeah, the nothing. But yeah, like so Ken knows of my deep roots in 1980s sci-fi, 1980s fantasy, and to be able to get that gift from Ken, yeah, I just don't know how I'm gonna be able to repay that guy. Like seriously. I will say that when I met that dude, I was like, we're gonna hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I yeah, I
It's a
Ken
good day,
Alger.
dude. It's a good day.
Yeah,
Makes for a good Friday. Okay,
yeah.
so I want to switch gears real quick to the Mandalorian. Bad
Mm,
Batch came out. We had another episode of Bad Batch this week, which was fantastic. But we had the Mandalorian season 3 final trailer comes out on March 1st,
oh,
and there's a lot in this trailer. One of the things I
yes.
wanted to ask you about is there's one particular scene. Actually, well, there's two scenes, but what I wanted to start with, and there's just so much to unpack with it. There is a scene where, um, oh, I can't remember the character's name. She's the mechanic on the planet he
Oh, it's
lands.
played by Amy. It's played
Played
by
by
Amy Sedaris.
Amy
She's
Sedaris.
she's dressed. She's dressed like Ripley
Yes,
from the Alien series.
yes, absolutely. Same
She's
hair,
even got
everything.
like yeah, Sigourney Weaver's like hair from like
Exactly,
Aliens.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in the trailer, oh, and hold on, before I do that, because I got to put it out there. If
Oh
you
yeah.
should know, if you
Spoiler
don't
warning.
already, if you haven't seen the trailer for the latest trailer for season 3 of The Mandalorian, go watch it because there will be lots of spoilers. Okay.
Yeah, but by the way, pause our show right now. Come back, and we will be still talking about it. It's like what is it? 3 minutes? Like go
It's pretty
check it
quick.
out. Watch.
It's
Yeah,
really quick.
watch
Yeah.
watch the trailer.
So in that scene, he's getting ready to take off to fly wherever he's going to fly. We don't know where that falls in the series, but she says,
Dude,
she
I
goes,
totally know where you're going.
I love this. She goes, "May the Force be with you," and you hear the uplifting sort of like Jedi music, and then it cuts to the, and this is the way. And I love
Yep.
that. So I wanted to ask you, unpack that for us. Unpack that interact, not actual interaction, but unpack that for us.
Yeah, I loved that. So this builds from the best part to me of the Book of Boba Fett was how it was Mandalorian season 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And we got that kind of juxtaposition of the Jedi and the Mandalorians
Mm-hmm.
as two, you know, what is it? Mandalorians. It's not a race; it's a creed. I thought a lot about that because Jedi is a creed. And regardless of where the Jedi or Jedi Bendu or like all, you know, all of the history of who the Jedi were, just like the Sith, and how you can maybe tie it to a specific culture or maybe a race of people, like the Mandalorians. The idea that that both are creeds, that are coexisting alongside of each other and having come into conflict in the past. I also like how they're somewhat diametrically opposed. That the loyalty to one another is so important
Mm-hmm.
as it is the loyalty to the creed. While a Jedi, while Anakin says things like, we're encouraged to love, we're encouraged, but they can't have attachments. They have to be so wary of that. And so I love that is a continuation in that trailer, where when she says, may the force be with you, and that then credo of this is the way, which is also a small sect of the Mandalorian creed, what Din Djarin is. I love that. I also liked that Mando keeps changing and evolving. Like first he's a loner, and then he's got to take on Grogu. Then he's got to keep growing and growing. He takes off his helmet. But there was another thing that you might notice as well, and I think you even had that sound there, which is there's a droid now at one point in that trailer when they're taking off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a droid that is now being serviced in the modified N1 starfighter that's now in the droid slot for an R2 unit, and it almost looks like and I don't know if this is right, it almost looks like Chopper. And I thought, and I just thought of all of the things that Mando is, that he's evolving and he's growing, and that it's also now a personal creed that he has. He's bending his beliefs to where he's growing.
Mm-hmm.
Taking off his helmet, building a relationship with Grogu, all of that. I loved that moment. Jeff, what were your thoughts?
I have several, and I completely agree with what you described. There was a thread on someone had posted a video on TikTok about this, and what was interesting to me is that one person on that thread was commenting saying, "Yeah, but I really don't like that he's not a bounty hunter anymore. The whole purpose of the show was to be a bounty hunter, etc." And the person, it wasn't a heated argument. The person who created the content replied back saying, "Yeah, but he's changed. That's the point of this, is he's evolving." And the person said, "Yeah, but that's not really what the show was meant to be about. It was meant to be this, and I wish they would go back to that." And I thought about commenting on it, but I decided to pass, because I knew we were going to do this show or this episode, and I wanted to bring it up here specifically to say that that's what I actually really love about The Mandalorian, is very clearly, like with any good show, since it's not I guess serial in nature. Like each episode is not just a standalone episode that's all it is. There is an overarching story that is playing, and one of the things that really contributes to that is the character of Din Djarin, or the Mandalorian, is evolving over time. That's what makes a character good, or a good quality character. Now there are good quality characters out there that can be antagonistic or something to that effect, where they are one dimensional and they stay the same. But we attach those when they serve a very particular purpose in the story. But for something like The Mandalorian, we need to see that character evolve, because otherwise we're watching the same show every single time. And I'm sorry, maybe that would have worked 40 years ago, but that doesn't work anymore. Audiences don't connect with a character that never changes, because it's not real. No, sentient being, human or in the Star Wars galaxy, many others, no sentient being is static, doesn't stay the same forever. They all change and learn and grow, and we need to be able to see that over time. So that was part of it. The other part, and this is a little bit more of a snippy, but I really do love that this happened. To me, it was a huge reinforcement of, we talked about this before, and I think I brought it up before. To me, it's a big reinforcement of the almost ultimatum that Luke gave Grogu. Now, he didn't give him an ultimatum, but he gave him a choice that was an improbable choice for a child to have to take. I really love that this, even though it seems a little snippy in the clip, I really love that how that plays out, because it reinforces to me that Grogu made a decision based off of what Grogu connects to and who Grogu connects to. And that doesn't mean that Grogu cannot be a Force user and do things for good and help the galaxy. It means he didn't, Grogu as a character, they didn't pick to the Jedi dogma for a lot of different reasons. But it also is, it kind of solidifies for me that that was almost the beginning of the end for Luke and the Jedi. I love Luke, and I don't think it's a negative, but it very much showcases or foreshadows what's going to happen in The Last Jedi many, many years later in the storyline. Because if he's already on the path of like, well, I've got to follow what I know, I'm going to have to give this character a choice, and you got to choose the Jedi, and you have to forego everything else that you were doing. It's like, that's not a choice people can really make. It's why the Jedi brought kids in before they knew their family, because then it was easy. There was no choice to have to make. This is the only family you know. But when people have a family to choose from, they're not going to choose to give up all that by and large. So really what should have happened is Luke, as he rebuilt the Jedi Order, or attempted to, really should have adapted to that and said, all right, what worked in the past, that book, we have a book now, it's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Same thing should have been applied. And I think that whole scene to me is just two phrases. May the Force be with you. This is the way. Really, to me, indicates, even coming back to the Jedi, that the Jedi needed to evolve. Like, characters needed to evolve. And Luke really should have been able to set the tone for that. I think there was a lot of disservice done to him by his teachers and people that he worked around and the little bit that he understood. But I really do love that about what this series is showing us, is that Star Wars is evolving. Characters are evolving, and this is what we need to see. And it's not that the Jedi are dead, but there are so many more rich stories in the Skywalker saga and the Skywalker era that need and can be told that really have nothing to do with the Jedi. I think that's a really good thing for us as viewers.
I agree. I mean, I also think, I keep thinking of stories where it's like, when you have an unchanging character, I mean, it's like, recently, and this was over the winter break, I watched a lot of like old 80s television, and I thought about how outdated some of those characters were. And I just thought, man, like, you just can't have a character like this. And I don't mean like because of a thing that they say or a thing that they do, but like that, this kind of character just would not exist anymore. And I get the desire from people to have things stay the same.
Sure.
Especially in times of like, especially when you look at something like Star Wars, where it's like, it's fantasy, it's sci-fi fantasy, and there's a certain amount of value in going to a place that you know, and that can give you comfort. And I think a lot of people end up in sci-fi fantasy because of that. Like, they are looking for a story that they can sink their teeth into, and just maybe like get out of the real world for a little while. So when the real world invades and takes on changes the character, it can be a little bit like troubling. But yeah. I think that it's that evolution though that makes those characters really interesting. Like, Empire Strikes Back isn't the rip roaring adventure that it's the off to the races adventure that's the original Star Wars was. And for those people that do struggle with this, I would just say that I remember thinking, when you see at the end of The Force Awakens, which stars my friend Snap Wexley, he's my friend now. The end is Luke out on isolated purposefully. That wasn't gonna be a guy who was happy to see someone, if that made sense.
Yes.
And I think that's where it's like, you kind of got to let your stories take you somewhere. And people that go into exile it's either they want to be alone or it's a feeling of I have to isolate as punishment. Yoda was like that. Yoda's on Dagobah not because he's like, I really like that like mud house living and swamp monsters. Bring me more Dagobah. No, he's there because he's failed, and now he's in hiding. And Luke is the same way. So that's where I think of like even the complicated character of Luke. I really like when you introduce story driven complications. I do not like when a character is, I'm complicated because drama, because the script tells me so.
Right.
I think this is all changes that are earned, if that makes sense.
It 100% makes sense to me, and it's kind of leads into the next part of the Mandalorian trailer that I really wanted to kind of talk about was there's a mix of things in this trailer, and one piece that is missing from this trailer, and it's sort of replaced with something else, is in previous trailers we saw Bo-Katan kind of confronting Mando, talking about it's your clan that ruined us or whatever. But there's some dialogue there, and we know that there's going to be a confrontation of some kind, whatever the confrontation looks like. And in this trailer, that interaction was sort of replaced by Mando and a series of Mandalorians that are sort of part of his the evolution of what Death Watch began as. And then we see, of course, I was going to try to pull up an image and show, but anyone can go look for it. There's an image of one of the destroyed cities on Mandalore. And if anybody, I think there's a video in one of the trailers, or it's in one of the games that shows the destruction of Mandalore, the carpet bombing and the droids that show up and literally just decimate all of Mandalore after the Empire comes to power. And we get to see one of the cities from a Mandalorian ship above. We get to see one of the cities on Mandalore destroyed. So like the interaction with Bo-Katan is replaced by these two other things that are happening, in my opinion. And what I love about that is, and I kind of really enjoy that Bo-Katan wasn't in this particular trailer, is it really lets us focus on what is a Mandalorian. Because to your point, like Din likes to say, from how he was brought up in the Mandalorian culture, it's not a people, it's a creed or what have you. But there's two conflicting views because that's not originally what Mandalorians were. Mandalorians were a people that came from a planet and they had clans and they did these things. This particular sect, like they've lost that. It's a really interesting thing, and I'm very curious to see what the interactions look like when these two different almost belief systems or cultural feelings about what Mandalore is shows up, because the Din and his group almost have been led to believe that Mandalore is like, it's almost like Jeddah has become in the High Republic, where it's almost this place, or Ilum has become, where it's like a place we don't live on. It's not a place we stay at. It's a place we go to for pilgrimages to understand our history and what have you. But we're not going to reclaim we're not going to reclaim Mandalore. That's not really a thing we could actually do. That's almost how they seem to view it. Whereas Bo-Katan is like, no, this is where I was born. This is my planet. My family grew up here. Everything I knew grew up here. We've seen it through the Clone Wars animated series. It was a thriving place. Not all of the planet, but in the cities it was pretty thriving. Like, it's an interesting difference, and I'm very curious to see what that cultural interaction is going to look like, because I think that really is the next iteration of the Mandalorian story. He's no longer a bounty hunter. He's got a different mission here. He's got a kid, a family, a found family. What's that going to do to him? What's this look like? How does that change what he wants to be as a Mandalorian? And I think it was very telling to see that decimated city to really get a better sense of like what's going to happen with Bo-Katan. Not her specifically, but these two different cultural backgrounds when they have to finally conflict with each other.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I'm really looking forward to that. I just want to call out a comment that's inside of our chat right now. Someone did answer my question about, like, I didn't know if that was Chopper, that was inside of the modified N1 Starfighter. If it is R5, which I didn't know if it is, and it looks like it could be. I have not examined the trailer as much as others. Like, there are people that are looking at it like it's the freaking Zapruder film. Like, and more power to you, because I'm gonna go to your Reddit post to see what I missed. So I appreciate that. But to the Aussie Star Wars nerd, by the way, happy Saturday, because this is like Saturday morning for you. So thank you so much for joining us. if it's R5, that like I'm over the moon about that.
Yeah.
So Jeff knows the droids are my favorite part about Star Wars. R2D2 is my favorite character, and in like possibly in literature and fantasy, like R2, I love R2D2. And we just had a con here in Sacramento very recently where R2D2 was here on site. I took tons of like I freaked out about it. I love that guy, but I really like R5 because I always thought that R5 is such an odd looking droid, which again Chopper's modeled off of R5, and I always just like this, like R5 sounds weird. It looks like it's got like a worthless little garbage can on its head, and it's like I love that character. So if that is in fact the R5 that made everything possible with its bad motivator, I'm super excited about that. I love R5.
Yeah, it's very cool. I like how we're getting all these different. If it is, like you said, if it is actually that R5 unit, I like how we're getting, and even if, actually I should say, even if it's not that R5 unit, that specific one, then the constant nods to other parts of Star Wars stories is really beautiful. Because it even if it doesn't have to be, it almost doesn't have to be that exact unit. It makes you feel a certain way about how this story connects with other stories that have been told, or other parts of this story that have been told. And to me, all of that just compounds the world building that is being done here to make you feel like you are seeing one other story in a massive world of other stories that are happening, and they all kind of line up with one another. We don't have to see crossovers. Like, I know people would love that, to seeing Luke in an episode of Book of Boba Fett was kind of fan service. I don't mean that in the toxic way. I mean that sort of a, wow, we get to see Luke and see this other stuff happening. He was in The Mandalorian. All fantastic. But I also believe we don't have to see that to find the enjoyment in knowing that they do connect with each other. Yes, I love that. Like, we don't have to always drop a character in. Like, Luke standing there, good luck, Mando, and then walks a cameo walk. I mean, cool, but if it doesn't have to aid to the story that way. It can aid to the story and seeing the R5 unit and go, oh my gosh, this is happening around the same time, blah, blah, blah. That feels really cool. I like that they're taking the time to really do that effectively. And again, I think in this season we have, as before, we have multiple different directors for the show throughout the season, which has proven really, really positive. And not so much in Book of Boba Fett, but it really proved positive in other seasons of The Mandalorian. We got such great differences in how the story is being told by using that set of tools.
Yes, episode 6, season 1, The Prisoner is still like one of my favorite episodes of television. Like, if you haven't watched that recently, like, go back and watch that. And but all the directors from that season were great. I'll just point out Bryce Dallas Howard did episode 5, I think it was, which is the one where they're in the forest.
Yes.
That's so good. They're on like that forest planet where the spotchka, where they grow the krill that makes spotchka. By the way, and it's little stuff like that that kind of helps. Like, that's where I think the balance lies, is that if they're like, having those elements are great. Having R5 pop up is nice, and I would say that that's fan service, but it's the kind of fan service I don't mind.
Yeah,
I think it starts to become an issue if someone's like, it doesn't help the plot along. Like, if someone's like, if you have like an endless, just someone sitting there and they're like, oh, what are you listening to? And they're like, oh, it's the latest Max Rebo. You don't have this? Like that's where it's like, okay, I get it, Max Rebo. But I think it's great when they're able to like hit the midline. I would say something that had, people kept saying there's no fan service in this, and yet I feel like it was just steeped in things, deep references for fans to know, but was the Andor show, where there wasn't a lot of fan service. There wasn't a lot of like, surprise, here's this character, like, oh, look, here's Grand Moff Tarkin's just going to show up. It's like, instead it was very subtle, but it resurrected a lot of characters that were great to spend time with, like Mon Mothma, obviously Cassian Andor. There was a lot that they did there that wasn't necessarily fan service, but still borrowed a lot from the worlds that were around it.
Yeah, I really do love that. And one of the rumors I heard about casting Andor, or a suspicion. We'll see if it ever pans out. That I forget what her name is, but the person who works with Luthen in his shop, the woman who
Oh
works
yeah.
with him, that she was actually the rumor or the theory is that she was actually one of Padme's handmaidens.
Oh,
And
I
like,
would. I'm behind it.
yeah,
Yeah, let's do that.
I think
Yeah,
that would be amazing, and it could be something that is. That would be a thing for me that would be not only a beautiful way to stitch these stories together with each other, but it don't have to make it obvious. Like you were, she wouldn't be Sabe, but like you're Sabe. Like it doesn't have to be that blunt. It could be something that is that, like she happens to drop a bit of knowledge. It's like, where'd you get that from? Oh, I knew Naboo Royal Guard told me once or something, and like it's just kind of moved on from. But like something like, wait, how would you? And then you could like pick it up in a comic book or something later on. Like it doesn't have to be doesn't have to be a strong thing, but to know that wow, these other characters that have existed in other places and even gotten books that have been produced recently can be brought in different ways in a different context, because clearly those characters haven't gone anywhere. They still exist in this world. Where are
that's
they
right.
at? What are they doing? Where did they find their new place in the galaxy after the stuff went down in Revenge of the Sith? That's, to me, that type of connecting of dots is really, really interesting because it enriches the story. It doesn't just give you something that says, look, here's your Christmas tree ornament. It's I'm going to provide you something that actually makes the Christmas tree stand up and become more beautiful. It's not, I just gave one more thing to hang on there and go, look, if you look around the corner, it's right there. Oh, that's right. Because that feels good for like a minute, but it doesn't go
Yes.
anywhere beyond that. Something like what we were just describing goes well beyond that. It's like, well, if that person's connected here, what else are they connected in other ways? What could that, and it becomes through lines or threads that can be tugged for other content later on to really make this a much more rich story.
Yeah, I always like too if they're able to build something up that was like smaller, that has like it's a story that I'd be interested in, or like it helps to justify something. Like I always thought the Handmaidens thing was a really weird choice. Like I feel like George Lucas likes reveals. And I feel like that was one of those reveals that stayed in the script too long, and then by the time they shot it, it's like Padme is in fact, because I think that they didn't. I really think they ended episode one not realizing that they gave Amidala two names. And no joke, they 100% did that. They ended up going, oh, she's Padme Amidala, but then that kills the whole Amidala and Anakin thing. Like they wanted to do Luke and Leia, double letters,
Yeah.
Amidala, Anakin. They wanted to do that, and I think that what happened is when they tackled episode two, they were like, "Uh-oh, we gave that character two names. Well, what's her real name?" Because she stops and she interrupts Boss Nass, and she's like, "Yeah, like I'm Queen Amidala." She doesn't say I'm Padme Amidala. She's like, "I'm Queen Amidala." And so anyway, my point on that is, which by the way, apparently last name super important in this universe as per episode 9. But my point about that is I always thought that the handmaiden thing was really like they could do more with that. Like if those are Padme's bodyguards and Padme's died in episode 3, I don't know if those bodyguards would have been like so she just lost the will to live, huh? She
Right.
straight up just lost the will to live. Nothing else happened. Nothing else happened. We're having an Ophelia level funeral at this point. We are everyone in all of Naboo is ringing bells and but she just lost the will to live.
Yep. That was it.
So I'd like that. I will say that actor who plays Luthen's assistant could be a great successor, and I'm all for recasting. I see these characters as Shakespearean. Put in other actors, it's fine. When they brought in Ewan McGregor to be Obi-Wan, people were like, "Oh no, I don't really like that." That's fine. That actor who plays that could have been a young Leia to me. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm also okay with like new stories. But yeah, I'd love for them to build there. I'd love for them. I don't need a ton of fan service. So that is a thing that I did like when I saw the Mandalorian season 3 trailer is. I did not see a tremendous amount of fan service. It did exactly what a trailer should do. It teased me with shots of things that I want to go and see. It gave me enough of the story that I'm a fish on the hook right now, so they can just reel me in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about
Yeah.
where that season's going to go.
Me too. I'm super excited.
Is there one thing you don't want to see in that season?
I don't want to see Boba Fett.
I
do not. It's probably a hot take, but I do not want to see Boba Fett. Cool.
Agree.
You did a Boba Fett show. That's fantastic. Lots of people love Boba Fett as a character, and that's fine if they want to do more of his content. Fantastic. Everyone should have the thing that they love. That said, I don't want to see him in the Mandalorian. He's already admitted he's not a Mandalorian. He's like in the Mandalorian season where he showed up. Someone said, "You're not a Mandalorian," and I think it was Bo-Katan, and he's like, "I never claimed to be." I don't want to see him in this. I really, really don't, because this needs to be one character story, and when you bring in Boba Fett, it complicates everything, because it just complicates things in a way that I don't think is useful for this. Probably a hot take on my part, but how about you?
I think that is a hot take. I would agree with it. The Boba Fett ship to me has set sail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in I'm really worried about setting up Bo-Katan and Mando to have some type of big fight in their throne room. I've seen enough throne room fights.
Yes. Specifically Mandalorian throne room fights.
Yeah, I guess my issue at this point is now, Jeff, is I would love some other threat than I want the throne, and then Mando is another one of these people that's like, great leaders have leadership thrust upon them. I get that storyline. I've seen that enough. I am hopeful that there is something else that we can see here. I'd almost be more in favor of Mando, that the armorer is his enemy. I'd be more interested in that.
I 100% on board with that, because especially the way that she made the comment that said Mandalorian no more, or whatever she said when that happened, and we've seen her in the trailer. She has shown up in the trailer, at least one of the trailers. I would prefer that, because there almost feels like what feels like it could be built out to is a confrontation between what she indicates as like holding on to this sort of dogmatic view of, if you didn't follow the rules, you're no longer the thing. Whereas we know in a lot of belief systems and faith systems, and not that the Mandalorian, the creed they're going through is a faith, but that it's more contextual than that. It's more nuanced than that. And that they can still be who they are and still hold to that without following strict dogma that like the only path to it is this one linear path, and that's it. If you break that path, you can't possibly be it. And I'm with you. I kind of hope that there's something more like that, where no, just like with the Jedi who should have evolved and didn't, and it's still, as Luke said, the Jedi need to go away. I think it's the same here. I think if we can see Mando and others realize, no, we need to evolve beyond what we were before to continue. And somebody like her, I could see Bo-Katan being there around that, but the armor I could see almost being like, if not the threat, being sort of trying to be the rock that's trying to hold the river back. Like, no, I'm going to stand here and hold this position, and everyone else is like, well, we're going to get in the boat in the river and just float past you, so good luck. Something like that would be really interesting to watch. More interesting to me than him and Bo-Katan battling it out for the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if it comes down to that, I'm actually going to be really disappointed. Like, that's like too simple of a story. Like, I want this to be something more. I also think that Mando's bigger than that now, if that makes sense.
I totally agree.
And again, like I don't need some type of Mando sitting in a big chair with people lifting up guns around him. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
that's the thing that I'm like,
I don't want to see
I'm more interested in, like, I'd love to see some complexity. Like, we've already had Mando and Grogu have to choose for and against each other. I also am kind of beyond that point as well. I also don't need Grogu to be kidnapped.
Right.
I would be more interested in if there's a conflict between the two of them,
Yeah.
which would be hard because Grogu doesn't talk. But I'd be more interested if there was a conflict between the two of them that they had to resolve.
Just
But
if
yeah,
yeah, on that, it's interesting you say it, because if they played up this sort of familial conflict thread
yeah,
in the season where it's sort of a combination of things like what we were describing about the armor and them, and then also showing conflict between, and conflict is the wrong word, it's too strong a word, but like this series of disagreements between Grogu and Din would be really interesting, because it's sort of found family. Like, you're not my dad. I wasn't claiming to be like, getting up to mischief. I'm going to do the things I want to do. Dude, you got to be careful with your powers. I'm going to do what I need because I'm just learning those. And like, have that happen, it can really be much more about found family, and Grogu and Din kind of like at the end of the season being like, y'all rest of Mandalorians, you can have, I was there to help you get there, but I've got these things I need to do, this commitment that I have given to another being that I've got to be with, and that's more important than dogmatic views to a belief system. That sort of conflict to me, or conflict again is the wrong word, that sort of like character interaction to me would be far more interesting than I battled Bo-Katan in a castle someplace where we're fighting for the glory of Mandalore. Yeah, I don't care about that. It's cool, and there's reasons for it, and we can do that in comic books and all kinds of places. But for this show, I feel like more nuanced connection to these people and what they're doing and what they're dealing with now would be a lot more interesting than the rest.
yeah. I like that idea a lot. I also like the idea of a conflict. I see that Mike Franz actually brought something up that I've been thinking a lot about, and I know that we're coming up to time, so I'll say this is just kind of my final thought here, that the thing that I wouldn't mind seeing is either Grogu not being a joiner because he might feel the fear and the exposure of joining a larger group
Mm-hmm.
like the Jedi, who were then annihilated, or if he is a joiner, and maybe more of a joiner than Mando is, and Din Djarin, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have a conflict, a legitimate conflict, where Grogu is more of a Mandalorian than Din Djarin. And that happens sometimes. You bring someone into a faith that they drink a lot more than you can. And Din Djarin's also older, and he's made compromises. He's made compromises. That the line that Bill, oh gosh, why am I blanking on his name? The gentleman that they break out of prison who
Oh, yeah,
starts
Bill Burr's
the
character. Yeah.
Bill Burr's character, where it's our beliefs are only as strong until they're tested
Mm-hmm.
against something that we love,
Right.
and
So
so
true.
yeah, I'd be more interested in seeing that story. I Yeah, it's cool. Like, if there's a raid on Mandalore, there's some cool fighting beneath the caves. Like, yeah, I'm all about that. But let's make this more character driven.
Yeah,
That's
I
what made
totally agree.
Empire so great. That's what makes Andor so great.
Yep.
So I know we're in our last minute here, Jeff. Throw it over to you for a last word.
I just want to say I'm excited. All this content is great. We didn't really get to the Bad Batch today, but that's okay. Like, the Bad Batch is playing out really nicely. This last episode was all about Crosshair, and it's already really shaping up to be a challenge to how the characters view the world that they live in today, which I think is amazing, because that show needs to really be the darker, grimier, showing us what's going on in the animated side of things. So I'm excited to see where the Mandalorian takes us. And then we have Ahsoka coming out sometime this year, which will be even just beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much good content. We have another Star Wars book coming up, another High Republic book coming out here very soon. I'm in the middle of reading the latest audio drama called The Battle of Jeddah, which is,
Wow,
whew, it is hard to get through. Like, hard in that I want to keep listening, but I have to keep taking breaks because it is so intense. And it's a
that's
full
awesome.
audio drama written by George Mann. There are, I think, like 9 or 10 cast members doing the different voices in it, and the amount of inflection and sound effects is making this it's really, really intense. I can't, I have said it many times before, but I'll leave everyone with, if you have not started reading the High Republic books, you absolutely need to do it. They are phenomenal. And the second phase, which we're in right now, is they just get right into it. Like, and it's hard hitting emotionally. The best way I can sum up phase two is, imagine what would scare the Jedi, like to their core, all Jedi, and can actually legitimately harm the Jedi. that is not Sith, what can really do that? That's what the season's all about, and this phase is all about, and I mean that in the most intense sort of way, like emotionally, physically. It's scary. It is very scary, and I'm all for it.
I like that. I think this has been a whole episode where we talk about how things are getting complex. I say we do a Bad Batch roundup in maybe the next 2 episodes, and then we can lock in to Mando season 4.
Sounds good.
Or season 3.
Awesome, everyone. Well, thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll catch you back here next Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Hold on. Where's my outro?